Hold up. Did a coach really resign because Caitlin Clark got benched? That headline hit the timeline like a match to dry grass. Outrage, victory laps, conspiracy threads, and that familiar whisper. See? The league hates her. But before we let the internet write history in real time, here's the uncomfortable truth. The resignation story is a kind of viral claim that has already been proven false in this exact orbit before. In 2024, a similar post claimed Team USA coach Cheryl Reeve quit over a Clark question. USA Basketball told Reuters it didn't happen. The rumor got clicks anyway. And that's why tonight matters. Because while people argue over a fantasy bench, the real WNBA is staring down something bigger than any feud. Power, money, labor, respect. On December 19th, 2025, WNBA players overwhelmingly authorized their union to call a strike when necessary, with the current CBA extension running to January 9th, 2026. That's not drama. That's a countdown. Now drop Caitlin Clark into that pressure cooker. She shows up at Team USA camp in Durham, North Carolina. New coach Kara Lawson, a youth movement. The next era loading. And Clark doesn't play the victim. She speaks like someone who finally understands leverage. She calls these negotiations the biggest moment the WNBA has ever seen, and warns it can't be messed up. No screaming, no subtweets, just a calm statement that lands like a gavel. Because in women's sports, the system has a tell. It smiles for cameras, then tightens the rules behind closed doors. It tells players to be grateful, to be patient, to not rock the boat. The same script so many of our families heard when we first arrived. Accents heavy, dreams bigger than our bank accounts. But the audience isn't quiet anymore. They buy tickets, they stream games, they follow stars, and they notice disrespect instantly. So if you came here for gossip, stay. Because the real shock isn't who got benched. It's who's finally refusing to be benched by a system that profited from their silence. And what happens next to decide whether this league's future is shared or stolen. Here's what the headline merchants won't tell you. The real panic isn't about a coach's feelings. It's about a deadline with teeth. On December 19th, 2025, the WNBA Players Association said its members voted, overwhelmingly, to authorize a strike when necessary. Not tomorrow morning. Not because someone got offended, but because negotiations have stalled, and the clock is now set to January 9th, 2026. That date matters because it's not a tweet, it's a contract. The current collective bargaining agreement was supposed to expire October 31st. It got extended, then extended again. And now both sides still have the option to end the extension with 48 hours notice, which means stability can vanish in 2 days if talks break down. So when you hear strike, don't hear chaos, hear leverage. Hear workers saying, we helped build this moment, and we're not letting it happen without us. For a progressive audience, that should sound familiar. It's the same story our parents lived in factories, kitchens, hospitals, and classrooms. You could be essential and still be treated like you're replaceable until you organize. The league's response has been to stress growth and good faith. The union's response has been blunt. The old rules have been unfair for nearly 3 decades, and the gaps aren't small. Reported proposals talk about a $1 million guaranteed base max salary, projected revenue sharing that could push top earnings above $1.2 million, minimum salaries projected above $225,000, and a team cap around $5 million starting in 2026. That sounds big, until you ask the second question. What percentage of the money is actually flowing to the people on the floor? Because this isn't just about bigger paychecks. It's about revenue sharing, benefits, childcare, retirement, roster sizes, and whether the league treats players like partners or like cost to manage. And right as these negotiations tighten, the sport is entering a new visibility era. Sponsors and networks don't just buy highlights, they buy certainty. They want to know the games will happen, the stars will play, and the product won't get swallowed by internal warfare. That's the real stakes behind every Caitlin Clark trending topic. She's not the cause of attention. She's a spotlight that makes it impossible to hide. And once the spotlight hits a system built for a smaller world, you start seeing the seams and the people who stitch them together. That's why the league can't afford another misinformation wildfire right now. A strike, even the threat of it, can freeze everything that's supposed to kick off the 2026 cycle: free agency, the expansion draft, the off-season momentum. And it would be the first labor stoppage in WNBA history, a headline the sport has never had to wear. Players aren't only fighting for salary. Reuters reported the union statement also pointed to facilities, family planning support, and the basic dignity of being treated like professionals. When you spend your whole life being told to wait your turn, you learn a hard lesson. Turns don't arrive, they're taken. And the system that taught women to be quiet is about to get very loud. Next, we trace who built that system and why. The villain in this story doesn't wear a jersey. It wears a process, a clipboard, a committee. We'll explain later. And in the WNBA ecosystem, that system has learned a dangerous trick. When the pressure rises, it hides behind silence and lets fans fight each other in the dark. Go back to June 2024, when USA Basketball announced the Olympic roster for Paris and Caitlin Clark wasn't on it. Official explanations pointed to experience, continuity, and roster fit. Reasonable words on paper. But here's what the system underestimated. In the modern women's sports boom, paper loses perception in seconds. If you don't communicate clearly, the internet will communicate for you, and it will do it with anger. That's how not selected turned into benched, and bench turned into blackballed. And suddenly you had people who don't watch the WNBA acting like they'd uncovered a secret conspiracy in women's basketball. It didn't matter that Clark was a rookie. It didn't matter that Team USA has its own long-term pipeline. What mattered was a feeling millions recognized instantly. The gatekeepers always find a reason to keep the new voice waiting outside. Then the misinformation machine went to work. In July 2024, a viral post claimed Team USA coach Cheryl Reeve resigned after a press conference question about Caitlin Clark. USA Basketball told Reuters it was false. The coach didn't quit. The headline did what was designed to do anyway. It made people furious, it made people click, and it made an entire conversation about personality instead of policy. And that's the real system problem. Because the system isn't just league offices and national team committees. It's the incentive structure around women's sports that rewards chaos more than clarity. When networks are negotiating, when sponsors are watching, when the next rights deal is looming, uncertainty becomes a weapon, not always on purpose. Sometimes it's just neglect. But neglect has consequences. For decades, the WNBA has been asked to prove it deserves investment while simultaneously being denied the full tools to maximize it. Charter travel, marketing muscle, year-round visibility. Now the league is finally stepping into a richer media era, and everyone can feel the air change. Owners want cost certainty. Players want a fair share of growth. Fans want the games. And into that triangle walks misinformation, trying to turn legitimate labor questions into petty fandom wars. That's why the system's favorite move, vagueness, stops working the moment the audience gets big enough to audit you and demand receipts from people in charge. You can see in the way every debate gets flattened into sides. Real hoopers versus casuals. Veterans versus rookies. Old fans versus new fans. And for immigrant families and first-generation kids who grew up translating paperwork for parents at doctors' offices, it's painfully familiar. A powerful institution speaking an official language, while the people living the impact are left to decode it alone. Here's the hardest truth. Nobody has to hate Caitlin Clark for the system to treat her like a problem. Systems protect themselves. They protect hierarchy. They protect precedent. They protect the comfort of the people who already know the unwritten rules. So when you hear politics, don't imagine smoke-filled rooms. Imagine 1,000 small decisions that add up. What gets promoted, what gets explained, what gets ignored, who gets the benefit of the doubt, and who gets told to be patient. And right now, with a strike authorization vote on the table and a January 9th, 2026 deadline hovering over the league like a storm cloud, the cost of that old habit, silence, has never been higher. Because the next era won't be decided by one roster. It'll be decided by whether the system can evolve fast enough to meet the moment. And the moment is walking into the room with a ponytail, a calm stare, and a sentence that sounded like a warning and a promise at the same time. Caitlin Clark didn't walk into Team USA camp asking for permission. She walked in like the future had already arrived, and everyone else was just catching up. Durham, North Carolina. Duke University. A new cycle beginning under Lawson, and the roster feels like a relay race. 10 newcomers grabbing the baton, veterans watching closely, and the next 4 years already whispering Los Angeles 2028. Reuters called it a youth movement, and you could feel the electricity in that phrase. Because youth in women's sports isn't just age, it's leverage. Here's why Clark is the perfect hero for this moment. She represents every fan who has ever been told their seat at the table was too soon. Every kid of immigrants who has ever heard, "Be grateful you're even here," while quietly knowing they're overqualified, underpaid, and still expected to smile. She doesn't have to say it out loud for people to recognize it. They can see it in the way she carries herself. Steady voice, clear eyes, no begging. And when reporters press her about the league's labor talks, she didn't play the hot take game. She didn't blame teammates. She didn't throw shade at the old guard. She did something far more dangerous to a fragile system. She stated the truth plainly. She called the current CBA negotiations the biggest moment the WNBA has ever seen. And she added the part that made executives pause. It's not something that can be messed up. That sentence matters because it reframes the entire Caitlin Clark discourse. For a year, the conversation around her was loud and messy. Olympic roster debates, role arguments, fans accusing everyone of jealousy, critics accusing fans of treating her like a savior. The system loved that noise. Noise is helpful. Noise keeps people fighting sideways. But Clark didn't show up to camp sounding like a rookie begging for approval. She sounded like someone studying the business. In the same breath as fight for everything we deserve, she talked about the fans craving the product on the floor. Because the product is where the power is generated. And then there's the brand gravity. When Nike decides to put women athletes at the center of a Super Bowl moment, and Caitlin Clark is one of the faces, that isn't just marketing fluff. That's a scoreboard the league cannot ignore. It signals where corporate tension is moving, and it tells every gatekeeper one thing. You can control minutes, but you cannot control momentum. So no, the real story isn't a bencher. The real story is that a young star learned the oldest lesson in American sports. Respect follows revenue, and revenue follows eyes. Clark is the eyes. Not alone, not by magic, and not at the expense of the veterans who built the league. But she is the clearest proof that the audience is bigger now, more diverse now, more global now, and it will not accept backroom quiet the way it used to. That's why her calm tone hits harder than any rant. She's not demanding worship. She's demanding alignment. A league that sells growth must share growth. A league that wants immigrant kids, queer kids, and first-gen families to feel welcome must also show fairness where it counts. Pay, benefits, dignity, and voice. At camp, she even admitted she's learning. Asking questions, leaning on mentors, letting veterans like Sue Bird help translate the fine print into real life for players who have never negotiated a deal this big. That humility is why the hero framing works. She's not claiming she built the house alone. She's acknowledging the women who laid the foundation and saying the next floor has to be shared. And for fans who've lived between cultures, that resonates. You don't honor your elders by staying small. You honor them by taking what they fought for and pushing it farther, so the next generation doesn't have to beg in the same hallway. And if the system can't do that, Caitlin Clark won't have to burn it down. She'll keep rising until the rules look ridiculous. Then the cameras swing from the court to the conference rooms, and everybody is forced to choose: grow for everyone or control for few. Next, the fight goes public. Stop before the internet turns another roster decision into a civil war. Let's put the story on the witness stand. Because benched sounds like punishment. It sounds like somebody got shoved to the back of the room, told to stay quiet, told to be grateful. We know what it feels like when institutions smile in public and lock doors in private. But here's where the courtroom gets interesting. In women's basketball, the loudest narratives are rarely the cleanest truths. Exhibit A is the phrase, "They benched Caitlin Clark." Fans say it like a verdict. They point to the way power moves. Committee choices, closed-door conversations, the old habit of expecting rookies to wait their turn. They argue it was not about basketball. It was about control. And when people feel control at play, They do not ask for box scores. They ask who benefits. Exhibit B is the phrase "she was not selected," or "she had a role," or "it was roster fit." That side argues the game has layers: chemistry, continuity, timing, responsibilities that do not show up in a highlight reel. They say decisions can be imperfect without being malicious. They say growth requires patience. And here's the twist. Both sides are reacting to something real, not the gossip, the atmosphere. That atmosphere is why a single clip can rewrite a week. One influencer says they are freezing her out, and suddenly every missed shot is proof. A radio host says rookies need humility, and suddenly humility means silence. The system does not have to issue a memo. It just needs enough loud voices repeating the same framing until it feels like common sense. And let us be honest, the messier this gets, the easier it is to dodge the real questions. If fans are fighting over personalities, nobody is demanding transparency on contracts. If the spotlight stays on Caitlin, the fine print escapes accountability again. Because right now, the WNBA is not just choosing lineups. It is choosing a future. Every decision gets interpreted through money. Who draws the cameras? Who sells the arenas? Who moves the culture? Who gets protected? Who gets blamed? That is why this debate does not stay on the court. It spills into labor talks, into TV panels, into comment sections where women are asked to be thankful the second they ask for more. You can see the villain fingerprints in that reflex. When the system feels exposed, it tries to redirect the heat. It turns players into targets. It turns fans into factions. It turns fairness into entitlement. And suddenly the conversation becomes, why are they complaining? Instead of, why did it take this long to pay professionals like professionals? Meanwhile, the hero move is not loud. It is precise. Caitlin Clark does not have to accuse anyone to shift the room. All she has to do is stand there, calm and clear, and let the numbers speak when they arrive. She is not asking to be saved. She is reminding everyone that value is measurable, even when respect is not. So here's the question the whole league is about to answer. Is this era going to be built on transparency and partnership, or on gatekeeping dressed up as tradition? Because once the report had offered details at the public, this debate stops being feelings versus feelings. It becomes math. And math does not care who is offended. Math only cares who gets paid. Here's where the story turned from gossip to receipts. For months, the league and the union have been talking in careful phrases: progress, partnership, transformational. Then, on December 1st, 2025, the numbers leaked out, and suddenly everybody could see the shape of the fight. According to multiple reports, the WNBA's latest proposal would start the 2026 max base salary at a guaranteed $1 million, with a revenue-sharing component that could push top earners past $1.2 million. The minimum salary projected to jump above $225,000. The team's salary cap projected to leap to $5 million in year one, then rise with revenue. On its face, it sounds like a breakthrough, because compared to where the league has been, it is. But the players didn't look at those numbers and say, finally. They looked at them and said, show us the formula. People close to the talks have described the disagreement in a way that sounds boring until you realize it decides everything. What share of league and team revenue flows to players? Sports Business Journal and other outlets have reported the league's framework equates to something like the mid-teens percentage range, while the union has pushed for something closer to 30%. Even if the exact figures shift, the meaning is clear. The players want a partnership model, not a bonus model. And this is where the public gets tripped up, because some fans hear revenue share and think profit share. Not the same. Revenue is the money coming in: media rights, tickets, sponsorships, merchandise. Profit is what left after expenses. A league can argue it's still investing and not yet profitable, and players can still argue they deserve a fixed share of what they generate. Those two ideas can coexist. The conflict is about who carries the risk while the business scales. That's also why the constant extensions feel like a thriller. The current CBA was extended to January 9th, 2026, and both sides can terminate that extension with 48-hour notice. 2 days. In a sports world that plans years ahead, that's basically tomorrow. It's why every rumor hit harder. Because uncertainty isn't just emotional, it's expensive. It can freeze sponsorship activations, stall player movement, and turn off-season planning into a guessing game. And when a league is trying to prove it deserves long-term investment, nothing terrifies decision-makers like one word: interruption. That's when executives start calling lawyers. Fans start choosing sides, and the timeline combusts. That's the part casual fans miss. Salary is the headline. Revenue share is the power. If the league controls the math, it controls the future. And if you've ever watched an institution promise opportunity while keeping all the levers behind a locked door, you already understand why this is the pressure point. Here's the simple version. A big paycheck today can still be a bad deal if the pie grows tomorrow and your slice stays stuck. Players aren't just asking for higher salaries. They're asking for a system that rises automatically with the business, the way major men's leagues do. That means tying caps and pay directly to basketball-related income, not to a fixed annual bump that looks predictable on a spreadsheet and restrictive on a life. And the life part matters. A minimum salary above $225,000 sounds glamorous until you remember what this job demands. 12-month training, cross-country travel, bodies breaking down, careers that can end on one awkward landing. Add family planning, childcare, mental health support, retirement security, better facilities, things the union has publicly emphasized. And you see why players say this isn't only a pay debate, it's a dignity debate. Now, let's talk about why the league is feeling heat, even if it's acting calm. The WNBA is walking into a richer media era. A new rights package connected to the NBA's broader deal has been widely reported at about $2.2 billion over 11 seasons, roughly $200 million a year, and the partners are expected to reassess the value after the 2028 season, with $200 million described as a floor. That's not a small step. That's a different sport economy. So the league's challenge is real. When revenue jumps, costs jump too. Teams want to invest in staff, marketing, travel, arenas, and expansion. Owners want to avoid a model where spending outruns stability. From their viewpoint, a controlled ramp protects the league's future. But from the player's viewpoint, controlled ramp is a phrase you hear right before you get left behind. This is where the villain energy shows up, not in one person, but in a reflex. When women's sports finally becomes valuable, the system tries to treat value like a surprise bonus instead of an obligation. It praises the players publicly, then negotiates like the players are risked to be managed privately. And for communities who have lived through gatekeeping, immigrant families, queer families, people who learn to survive by reading between the lines, this moment is painfully familiar. The door is open, but the terms are still written by whoever arrived first. That's why Caitlin Clark's presence makes executives uneasy even when she's polite. She doesn't have to throw a punch. Her popularity is a market signal. It turns the league's internal choices into external consequences. It makes every vague statement feel smaller. It makes every delay feel louder. And it's not just Caitlin. It's the entire wave, packed arenas, expansion chatter, mainstream coverage that actually shows up, young fans bringing their parents and their flags and their identities into the stands like it's a celebration, not a compromise. This audience isn't begging to be included. It's already here. The only question is whether the league will build an economy that matches the culture it's selling. So when players keep pushing for revenue share, they're not being ungrateful. They're being literate. They're looking at a media deal that changes the scale of everything, and they're saying, if we're the product, we can't be treated like an expense. The league can dismiss tweets. It can't dismiss leverage. And once that proposal hit the public, you could feel both sides harden. The owners feeling like they offer a mountain, the players feeling like the mountain is still on the owner's land. Then the whispers turned into a decision. Not a rumor, not a vibe, a vote, historic participation, overwhelming unity, and one sentence that made the whole sport sit up straight. When necessary. That word, strike, used to be something the WNBA could treat like a distant myth. Then Thursday, December 18th, 2025, it turned into a button the players actually placed on the table. Not because the athletes woke up wanting chaos. Not because they hate the league they bled for, but because after months of bargaining, the union said the membership delivered a decisive mandate. authorized leadership to call a strike when necessary. 93% of eligible players participated. 98% voted yes. That isn't a rumor. That's unity with a timestamp. The union statement didn't whisper. It accused the league of clinging to draconian restrictions that have held players down for nearly 3 decades. It warned about efforts to divide and undervalue them. Those are not casual words. That is a workforce saying, we see the old playbook, and we are refusing to be pitted against each other. Rookie versus vet, star versus role player, U.S.-born versus immigrant, straight versus queer, new fans versus real fans. If talks collapse, the fallout won't stay in press releases. A strike could freeze the expansion draft, jam up late January free agency, and turn momentum into pure uncertainty for everyone. Read that again, because this is the moment the power dynamic shifts. Strike authorization is not an immediate walkout. It's permission. It's the players telling negotiators, owners, and every sponsor watching from the shadows, we are done being treated like a feel-good marketing story with a hard cap on our lives. And the timing? Brutal. The current CBA has been extended, again, through January 9th, 2026, and either side can terminate that extension with just 48 hours notice. 2 days. That's how fast we're making progress turns into games might not happen. So when people online scream about a benching, understand the league is staring at something far scarier than rotation: uncertainty. If you come from an immigrant family, you already know what divide and conquer looks like. It's the boss who praises your work ethic while keeping you temporary. It's the paperwork that's always under review until you stop asking. It's the polite smile that turns into a threat the moment you say, I want what I earned. And the players, many of them daughters of migration, survivors of bias, builders of community, are saying together now out loud. And even with that weapon on the table, the union leadership is still saying plainly that they want a 2026 season. WNBPA President Nneka Agwamike told ESPN the players want to play, but they're prepared to do whatever it takes to get a fair deal. Then came Caitlin Clark, standing at Team USA camp on December 12, 2025, and doing something that drives systems crazy: speaking in complete sentences. She called the negotiation the biggest moment the league has ever seen, and said it can't be messed up. She didn't demand a throne. She demanded a future, and she even acknowledged the tension, saying players will fight for what they deserve, but also need to play basketball, because that's what fans crave. That's not arrogance. That's accountability. Now here's where the human part hits. The same people who told women's basketball to be grateful are suddenly begging it to be convenient. They want the players to keep smiling through interviews, keep saving the brand, keep absorbing disrespect, keep turning the other cheek. Because disruption is messy and messy scares money. But the audience has changed. The stands are filled with families who speak 2 languages, kids wearing jerseys like identity, and people who know that dignity is not a luxury item. So when the players draw a line, it doesn't feel like betrayal. It feels like growing up. And that's why the gossip headline never truly mattered. Coach resigns. Clark benched. It's clickbait camouflage with a real earthquake. The league is being forced to answer a simple question: are the women who create the value treated like partners or like replaceable labor? The loudest voices will call it greed. The quiet truth is its survival, and survival is never polite. Over the next few days, every microphone will become a battleground. Every podcast will pick a villain. Every clip will be sliced into a weapon. And some people try to turn this into rookie versus veteran, star versus role player, America versus everyone else. Don't fall for it. This isn't a culture war. It's a fairness fight. And once the timeline digests that, the shockwaves won't stay online. They'll hit front offices, sponsors, and locker rooms. Because what comes next isn't another rumor. It's consequences. By the time the sun came up, the coach resigns headline had already done its job. It didn't need proof. It needed friction. A single screenshot, a caption, and suddenly the timeline was auditioning for a courtroom. People shouting blackball, others shouting crybaby, and the ones who follow the W saying, can we please talk about what's real? Here's what became real next: the fact-checking wave. Reporters started pulling receipts. And the misinformation patterns surface again. Reuters has already had to debunk a viral claim like this once before, when a post falsely said Team USA coach Cheryl Reeve quit after a Caitlin Clark question. USA Basketball told them it didn't happen. The point isn't that everyone online is lying. It's that in a fragile moment, people fill silence with stories. And the silence has been the system's favorite hiding place. When the league and the union talk progress without details, rumors sound like certainty. When Team USA runs a camp full of new faces and cautious quotes, fans call it a collapse. When a star is left off a roster in 2024, not selected becomes benched, and bench becomes punished. That's not basketball analysis. That's a trust crisis. So the shockwaves didn't stop at the rumor. They hit everywhere money listens. You can see it in the sponsored discourse. Brands don't just invest in athletes. They invest in predictable calendars. You could see it in the media rights chatter. A new TV era is coming, and nobody wants a historic growth moment paired with a historic stoppage. You could feel in the way even casual fans started asking labor questions. Revenue share, minimum salary, charter travel, family planning support, because the players made it impossible to pretend those weren't core issues. This is where Caitlin Clark becomes a hinge in the story, not as a savior, but as a signal. When she told reporters on December 12, 2025, that the CBA talks were the biggest moment the WNBA has ever seen, and can't be messed up, she wasn't tossing shade. She was translating the stakes into a sentence that even non-fans understood. Calm words, maximum pressure. Then the union made it official. On December 19, 2025, the WNBPA said players authorized a strike when necessary, with 93% turnout and 98% voting yes. If you were waiting for proof the era has changed, that's it. Not a rumor, a count, a mandate. Inside that same week, Team USA camp coverage looked nothing like collapse. It looked like transition. Carol Lawson evaluating a pool, 10 first-timers learning the language of international basketball, veterans offering quiet mentorship. And outside the gym, the brand world kept moving. Nike's women's sports push had already positioned Clark alongside other stars, a reminder that corporate America is tracking audience attention in real time. That doesn't crown one player above the league. It pressures a league to act like a major league. And when money and labor collide, the side with unity usually wins first. And yet, here's the part the hot take shows miss. These players keep saying they want to play. They want the product on the floor, the fans in the stands, the little girls and first-gen kids watching and seeing themselves in a dream that doesn't require shrinking. They just don't want to keep building the house while somebody else owns the deed. That's why the coach resigns fantasy spreads. It gives people a single villain they can boo. But the real villain is a structure that still assumes women will accept gratitude instead of partnership. And the hero isn't just one player. It's a locker room full of women saying in unison, "We are the labor. We are the value. We are done being negotiated like an afterthought." So now the timeline is shifting. The same people who came for scandal are learning the calendar. January 9th, 2026. 48 hours notice. A season that could launch into a new media economy or freeze in place. And behind every clip, every rumor, every think piece, one question keeps tightening its grip. Will the league meet this moment with transparency and fairness, or will it gamble that the players will blink first? Because if they don't blink, if the union holds, if stars keep speaking like stakeholders, if fans keep demanding receipts, then the ending won't be decided by a bench. It will be decided by who gets to write the next contract for women's basketball in America. And that decision is coming fast. This is the part where the hot takes want you to pick a side and stay angry. But the real lesson of this WNBA moment is bigger than Caitlin Clark, bigger than Team USA, bigger than any rumor that tried to hijack the timeline. It's about what America does when women build something valuable. Do we reward the builders, or do we ask them to smile while someone else negotiates the future? The players have been clear. On December 19, 2025, they authorized a strike when necessary. The CBA extension runs to January 9th, 2026, and either side can end it with 48 hours notice. That's not drama for clicks. That's a countdown for the entire sport. And Caitlin Clark's calm warning at Team USA camp. that these talks are the biggest moment the WNBA has ever seen and can't be messed up. Landed because it was true. Growth is here right now. The question is whether fairness shows up with it. Here's what a winning ending looks like. A deal that ties player pay to the business they help create, protects families with real benefits, and treats athletes like year-round professionals, not seasonal inspiration. That kind of agreement doesn't just help stars. It lifts the role players, the rookies, the veterans, and the overseas grinders who kept this league alive long, before it's trendy to care. And if you're a fan, especially if you've ever been told to shrink your accent, soften your identity, or wait quietly for respect, this is your reminder. Sport are part culture, and culture is part of power. When you watch, when you show up, when you demand transparency, you're not starting drama. You're helping write the terms. So don't let a fake resignation headline distract you from the real story. The system didn't crack because one player arrived. It cracked because the audience arrived, and it refuses to leave. If you want the real updates as this deadline closes in, hit like, subscribe, and share this with someone who still thinks women's sports should be grateful for crumbs. Because any 48 hours could suddenly change everything.